So now I want to move on to our main presentation today. I want to invite Amit and Udi to join us. Not every day you get to host the founder and CEO of one of the fastest growing Israeli unicorns. And together with Amit, who's the chief evangelist, and I have to hear more about what being a chief evangelist is, of Gong. And this is also very special to me. Come join us. Because Udi has been an amazing mentor at Icon. He's always there to come and help the entrepreneurs and teach and ask questions. So I'm really honored that you're bringing Amit, and that we have you here on stage, and that Amit is joining you. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Hopefully the mics are on. There we go. All right. Hi, everyone. Great to see everyone. I've been spending all day here with this cohort. We've got our lapels. Yeah, we have a mic on.
All right.
Yeah,
easy enough.
So really exciting companies here today, and thank you for the rest of the guests who joined us here. It seems like a reunion with many Gong friends here in the audience as well. So excited for everyone to join us, but my favorite guest of all is, of course, Amit. So fun fact, Amit and I have worked together on and off for the last 25 years at 3 different companies, which, if you do the math, means we started when we were both 12. So it's been
I wanted to say this is the age we start lying about the actual number of years, right?
Yeah. So in case you're wondering, we first worked together at Click Software in the late 90s and early 2000s. Click Software went on to go public on NASDAQ and eventually got acquired by Salesforce for $1.5 billion or something. And then a decade or so later, we worked together at Panaya for 5 years, which ended up getting acquired by Infosys for a few hundreds of millions. And the last 7 years, it's been Gong, which has been quite the wild ride. So thank you, Amit, for joining me here today and joining this wonderful audience. So, Amit, I remember in early 2016, we had coffee in my building in Nachlat Yitzchak in Tel Aviv. And you told me about this crazy idea that you were going to build. And I thought, well, that sounds amazing if it works, but is the technology even there? So in case you haven't guessed, Amit and the rest of the team at Gong were doing AI way before it became cool. So tell us, what were you thinking back then? How did the idea came to come?
Well, I was, first, I want to say like a good word to everybody who was on stage. Like I didn't find one that I didn't like, and I remember like it reminded me like fondly the days that we're on stage, the same thing like 7 years ago. So congrats, like very exciting. But I got the idea for what later became Gong when I was a CEO of another company, a technology company. I was a company called Sisense in the business intelligence space. We're growing pretty well, and the charts were looking good, but I saw kind of inside the sausage factory, and there was like a lot of like spotty performances. There were some areas of business working well, some were not. There are some people that were successful, some were not. We're in a hyper-competitive space. It was really hard to understand what's our win rate, like who is eating our lunch, where are we successful, what's successful, and whenever I asked people, like I asked 4 people, I got 4 opinions. Actually, that was in Israel, so I got like 16 opinions, but it was hard to tell. And then I realized that all we had was relying on data that it was in our CRM, and CRM is fine. The problem, it relies on people that will put in the information. Guess what? They hate it and they do a terrible job. There's just not enough time in a day to capture all the information. And then I had kind of the shocking idea that, wait, like this was like 2016 where, if you remember, like DeepMind just beat the world champion in chess and was starting to diagnose cancer better than doctors. Right? So I said, how hard would it be for AI to capture and analyze information better than people? Right? So that was the genesis. I didn't think about starting a company, and with that, we went on to raise money, which was challenging, but that's probably like another question.
So fast forward 6 months from that coffee meeting, you called me in July of 2016, and you said, Udi, remember that crazy idea I told you about 6 months ago? Well, Elon and I went and built it, and then we rolled it out to 12 beta customers, And 3 months later, we said, wouldn't it be fun to tell them we're shutting it off unless they start paying? The beta's over. Tell us about that moment, and how did you know that you had reached early product market fit?
Yeah, so obviously, when you start something, everyone thinks that their baby is amazing and the most beautiful things, and nobody thinks that they're going to start successful. But honestly, you don't really know, right? That's the thing. You think it'll be good, and you'll succeed. So the first is part, and I want to thank Dror, whom is sitting us with here, and who was one of the few believers that had to bang on the table of the partnership and says, yeah, we're doing it. But as part, he said, let's do a research. And we called about 50 potential buyers and asked them, hey, we're building an autonomous CRM that relies on AI, and it captures emails, video, and voice. And what do you think? Would you buy? How much would you pay, right? And the feedback was fairly positive. So that's a positive signal. For those of you talking, that doesn't mean that they will buy. People say yes, and then they don't, right? So, but if they said no, we probably wouldn't be speaking here or speaking about a different idea. They said yes, which is okay, let's proceed. So with that, we started the first, we're begging and using extortion tactics on about a dozen friends and family company to do us a favor and test the application, so we have some data, we can start training the models, right? And you think when it's free, everybody would jump all over it. People did not want to use it. So we use all sorts of blackmail tactics from friends. You owe me this, you owe me that, and they got them to use. But after we launched, after about a couple months, we saw something pretty weird. People were starting to use the software. Right? And it says, seriously, what did it want? We didn't need any user. We just wanted the data, start capturing. And so we started looking at the logs. I was doing it personally. I was sitting 5 or 6 of us at the WeWork, and we're looking at the logs. Oh, they're searching for this, they're looking for this. We tweaked a few buttons, a few labels that were pretty ugly, and usage started to improve. We tweaked a little more. And in April, we saw, people are using it. For context, we weren't planning on selling anything that year. That was 2016. And we said, everybody, you get beta for a year. Nobody wanted it, but they did. And when we saw that the usage was good, I was telling my co-founder, Elon, let's do a trial close. Trial close is a sales tactic that you just go and ask for the order. Either people say yes or no, right? If they say yes, that's awesome. If they say no, at least you know what you're missing, right? And we even came up, we didn't obviously have any pricing. We said $50,000, which we wanted to be painful enough that it's not a trivial decision for people, but not outrageous, right? If we said $1, it wouldn't tell anything. If we said $1 million, also wouldn't tell anything. So we reached out to everybody, says, sorry, beta is over. Everybody hated us. They cursed in Hebrew. But 11 out of the 12 bought, right? That was the moment that we said, okay, this is real. Maybe we're onto something.
You don't really need to guess the nationality of that 12th customer, do you?
There are actually some U.S. companies. Yeah, there are some U.S. companies.
But the one of the 12 that did not buy, that was an Israeli company, of course.
Yes, they say it's too expensive.
So back then, we were pioneering AI for sales. Fast forward 7 years, everyone's grandmother is talking about generative AI. Talk to us a little bit about how do you think that's going to continue changing the sales world, and where is Gong's positioning and vision within that world? It seems like everything's changing now.
Yeah, even my grandmother is talking that she's not even alive for a few years. So we felt that Gong or technology like Gong would be bigger than CRM, right? One day, of course, very pompous, right? But we felt it captured 100 times more information with zero effort. It's hands-free. It does a better job than people without anybody having to lift a finger. So that was the vision. As we started growing, we found that customers are using it like in weird ways that had nothing to do with like customer management. So obviously within the customer stack, people started using it for customer success, for support. Product people use it to understand the voice of the customer. Marketing people to understand messages, so across the company, but in totally different areas. So we found a couple years ago that like quite a few of our users are using it for recruiting. So it's like, seriously? Like the product even designed to do that. And when we thought about it, when we started interviewing, we said, yeah, so what they use in applicant tracking system, which is like the same kind of like old system that people need to fill in forms. They do interviews and then to put in the comments and score. So that's another application that can be made autonomous with AI. We had customers reaching out to do like project management, right? You have a lot of the cloud applications are easy to use from an IT perspective. For users, someone still needs to update the project. So imagine a system just kind of captures what's happening in the email communication in the company and creates everything. So there's a whole class of application, everything that requires clerical work by highly paid people is up for disruption. This could be bigger than SaaS, and nobody would want to like fill in forms like in 2 to 3 years, in my opinion. Once they taste the other option, no one's going back to washing dishes by hand.
So the last 7 years, Gong has been broadly credited for creating and leading the revenue intelligence category, which has helped hundreds of thousands of sales professionals understand how to win more deals, save them a lot of manual work, understand what their top reps on their teams are doing better than others so they can learn from them. What is the next stage?
The next stage is actually doing everything autonomously. So we kind of look at like a self-driving cars as a model, right? So ultimately, if you follow that industry, there are like 5 levels of autonomous driving. Level 1 is maybe dead spot, blind spot alerts, or collision detection, right? And level 3 is assisted driving, that it can keep a lane, right? Where level 5 is like you're watching your Instagram and the car drives, right? So that's the idea. And at Gong, when we started, it was like first like capturing all the information and issuing all sorts of alert, like here's what's happening, here's that. The second level is kind of prediction, here's what will happen, and recommendations. This is the equivalent of assistant driving. And now, and we're not at level 5 yet. This is a hard problem, right? That requires a lot of accuracy and precision and technology. The system will start communicating with the customers on its own and do all of the work. So a fact that many people might not know, customer-facing people are spending about anywhere between like 50 to 70% of their time on non-selling activity. It's like updating records, it's one-on-one meetings, it's forecasts, it's training, it's enablement, all of that. And that's our opportunity, right? I think that at least half of that can be replaced by AI. So we're thinking about not as a technology, but almost like as a BPO. You outsource the work that everybody hates and overpays for to AI.
So I've heard some clever salespeople already getting access to ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah.
And using it to craft their emails and figure out how to approach customers. What value is Gong going to add with generative AI that those salespeople can't get with ChatGPT today?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's like a very that's table stakes. So summarization of documents is a great application for generative AI and crafting emails. It does help, right? The emails are kind of like okay, but it's a great, if you have like a writer's block, it's huge help, right? It gets you in the right direction, you do a little bit of editing, and it saves a lot of time. You know, writer's block is a thing. But the challenge is to, first is like truthfulness for this application, right? Sometimes they lie without even knowing very confidently. So if you want to use it for automation, right? If you know, if something happened and with a customer event, So here's an example, okay? So I get on call with an executive and a customer. We talk about like 5 different things, and then 5 things needs to happen. I need to send like a dinner invite to an executive invite. I need to speak with the account team about something else. And I need to have our IT team send her something that is that. All these 3 things. Ideally for me, I walk out of the call and everything just happens, right? This is extremely hard. That's why you need the precision and the reliability. So to get to that level of automation requires a lot of training and precision.
So maybe to close this chapter, you've half answered that, but to clarify, do you think AI is going to replace salespeople anytime soon?
Are there any salespeople in the audience? Yes.
You're fired.
Yes, I think that yes. I don't know how soon, but I think that yes. I think we're, or at least a lot of the work. So there is work that just doesn't make sense. Salespeople hate doing it. So that can go away. But there's also part of the process that if you could interact, chatbots are used in customer service. They're not great today. Like, I mean, there's some are better, some are worse, but they do. If you try to use them, right? If you have like a technical problem, they're annoying, right? But the technology is not very far, and it could get there, and it'll never be as good as a person. But let's say if it's like 80%, and I'm building a company, right? And I have an option of getting something that has like an 80% conversion rate that is almost free, does not work remotely, does not have sick leave, does not need vacation, does not need anything. It's a robot versus like people that cost a lot more. So there are cases where that equation would be obvious, that a lot of the sales process could be trimmed with AI that can answer a lot of questions and can drive a process in a way that is almost as good from a quality perspective, but totally different level of cost and effort.
Awesome. So we just saved you that huge budget on all those salespeople. Just buy Gong instead, and you're good. In this next section, I want to ask you some questions about what folks here, which about half the folks here are early stage entrepreneurs, what they can learn from what Gong is doing to deal with the current low economy. And then we'll open it up for questions from the audience as well. So can you start by telling us a little bit about what you can share about how Gong has felt this slump in the economy, and what are some of the things that we're doing at Gong?
Well, we're definitely feeling, we're working harder and growing slower, like a lot of company, but this is not like you talk about, how many years we work together, and we expected downtime. So these are times for companies to get better, and honestly, we grow extremely fast. When you grow fast, you don't always need to be all that good. So there are areas where we see that we didn't focus, or we didn't do like a good job, and there are a lot of like efficiencies that we're creating in a company, better processes, better customer support, more focus. We focus on the product, the things that really matter, right? Not all the ideas that we have. So we're doing well. We're growing. We're adding a lot. But it does the good companies become better, right? They have a hard times, but they walk out of like better companies.
Okay, so maybe from that, opening it up to the entrepreneurs we have here today, most of them are early stage, think seed to A. What are a few pieces of advice you could give them on what to focus on, say in the next 12 to 24 months, to come out not only surviving, but hopefully thriving out of this slump in the economy?
I think for seed companies, this is shouldn't be like an issue. It's not that they need to sell like hundreds of millions, and it's not hard to find 20, 30 customers. The ocean is so vast, right? If you're on the right idea, that it shouldn't be hard. So this is a good time to develop the product, find the product market fit, and find what people want to buy, right? When I spoke about that, we charge $50,000. We didn't need the money. The idea was, do we have something that is valuable enough, not just cool or interesting, that are people willing to pay difficult money, right? when you have that, then you know that, at least you have some kind of market, right? There's still a lot of questions, but at least that's the important part. And find something that people can pay you something that makes business sense. Like I wouldn't worry too much about the economy. And some, I met with great founders, and they said how they're going to help us reduce like our AWS bill, which is like, this is the best time. So for a lot of companies, these are phenomenal times. And I said the level of pain in the world right now is not smaller, it's bigger, right? Pain is your best friend, right? If you have the cure. So if I'm early stage.
You mentioned more pain. Is there other good things that you're seeing from this downturn that companies here can grasp on?
Yes. So it's hard for everybody. If you have competition, they're struggling. They might have like bigger problems than you, right? They might not. So I like, we're doing something like 10x better than that. They might not have the R&D, the capability to invest that. So there's lots of opportunities. It's not just hard for you. It could be actually very easy for you because you don't have the liabilities or the assets that they have, and you can develop and just find problems at top of mind for people right now. Solve a real problem, and I don't want to sound like a walk in the park. Nothing is easy, but it's not. These are not bad times for early stage.
So before we open it up to the audience, I know you're not a betting man. You like making data-informed decisions like we help our customers make. But if you were a betting man, what is your prediction on when are we going to come out of this slump, if you're thinking about that?
Tomorrow morning? I don't know. I actually do not try to predict. It's very hard. If you have to think, it's not like a decade, right? And it's probably not like 3 months. We are kind of like not assuming like anything. For planning purposes, we're not assuming anything like at least like a year. So we assume that it's going to suck like for at least like a year, maybe more. That's okay. If things turn better, then there's upside. And if not, we're ready. So does anybody have guesses? Like if anybody knows, let me know. Like we want to plan.
Before I open it up for a question for the audience, what should I have asked you that I didn't?
What should you have asked me that I didn't?
I want to make sure I don't get into trouble tomorrow.
Yeah.
I still work for this guy.
You're already in trouble.
All right, folks, we have mics here for the audience. If someone can help me pass them out, that would be awesome. This is always the first to the stage. There we go. We'd love to take your questions.
Please don't be shy.
We won't let you go earlier if you don't ask, so you might as well ask.
Please introduce yourself when you ask a question.
Hi, I'm Manu Kumar from K9 Ventures. I'm very curious to hear your take on the landscape that you're playing in, right? So you look at Salesforce, HubSpot, Outreach, lots of different companies that are kind of playing in that landscape. I would just like to hear, how do you think about that landscape?
Yeah, that's great. It's a question like, what's the competitive strategic landscape? So when we started, like nobody cared, and so nobody wanted to invest, and people think it's okay, like not a very interesting company, right? And I always like told the team, like I quote like Mahatma Gandhi. He says like first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win, right? So now we're at a point where all the year we said this is like the biggest thing, and we're ignored and laughed at. And when I was showing the companies, the big companies, one of them, and I showed a demo of the product early on, and they said like, we don't see the value in that. Why would someone want to buy that? And I remember like calling Elon, my co-founder says, yes, we made it. Like, because I remember like that IBM did not understand like what's the market for personal computers like back in the day. So when something is like either like extremely stupid or brilliant, right? It's hard to tell in the early days. So now there is a category, and we said we're creating a new category now. By definition, a company is in a category. You're just one. If nobody does it, there's no market, right? So now everybody see that AI can transform customer management, and we call it revenue intelligence, that not most of the world doesn't even know what it is, but it is the hottest space. With a market, there is a gold rush, there is competition, and I'm always prepared that, we had little, now we have quite a bit, and we're gonna have more, right? So, and that's a good thing. That's what we wanted. It validates. It also forces us to always be like ahead, right? It's not hard to develop technology these days. Most technologies, like when we were like 12 years ago, like at that first company, you build something, deep technology, probably of like 10 years, nobody could copy you. Now it's like, it's easy to develop, even like with AI, right? But you always, the tough part is what to develop, as you always have to be like ahead of everybody else. So our goal is always to be like 2 or 3 years ahead. So people copy what we had like 2 years ago, we're like 2 or 3 years ahead. But there is a market, there is competition from the big companies, CRM platforms, from communication platform, from small startup with like 2 people and a dog in a garage. Like it's, everybody wants to be like the next Gong, and we admire that. We have a different view of the world, and that's what we're working on.
If the entrepreneurs here need any more validation than what Amit said, I'll remind you of the Gong Labs data that we found that holds true both for Gong, but also for our thousands of customers. When you're up against a competitor in a competitive deal, your win rates are consistently higher than when you're the only vendor. That might sound counterintuitive, but when you're up against a competitor, it means your customer is almost certainly buying something in your category. So if you're up against one competitor, even if you're not better, you've got a 50% chance of winning that deal. That's incredibly high. If you're there alone, the most likely outcome is that you're going to lose to the status quo. The competition is rarely your biggest enemy, the status quo is. So keep that in mind. Competition is fantastic, not only because it means you now have a category, you're not the only ones who see the problem, but every time they come up against you, this is almost a sure win. So keep that in mind. Next question from the audience. Thank you. I have one over here.
Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you. Eran from Scopus Ventures. I'm a great admirer for a long time, and I told Dror that he's very lucky, but I know that you guys are very lucky having him as an investor.
Not lucky, he's smart.
We are.
I think that people that have used Gong, it's pretty incredible how there is a universe of intelligence that always was a black box for CEOs, for C-suites, for VPs. And you nailed the first persona, which pretty much sales organization. But I use Gong for product innovation and uncovering needs and customer satisfaction or expectations, etc. So how moving forward, what would be the next personas that you're going to tackle, and how is it that you're going to move from a single product to multi-product as a result of that multi-persona roadmap that you're probably looking at?
It's a great question, because we always like, so the question is like, how do we move from like one product to multiple product, which is exactly what we're doing. So we knew from day one, if you stay with a single product, you're a sitting duck, right? If we're successful, everybody's gonna go after us. At some point, big company wins, right? If you're the same product all the time. If you look at like Explorer and Netscape, right? That's like our learning, or Slack and Teams. First they suck. But if you are the same product all the time, then people move. So you have to become more strategic to your customers and solve a bigger problem so you're significant enough, otherwise you're just a feature. So last year, we used the same data that we have, from Gong to create a forecasting or prediction product, right? To this day, most companies relies on salespeople's sentiment of how the quarter is going to end. And we all know how that ends, right? So this is the first time it says, okay, now you really know what customers are saying, and we're going to take all the information and use AI to predict what the revenue is going to look like, at least as a second opinion. This year, we're launching our third product, right? And which is Engage. That
keep it to yourself. The big launch is
we're not.
in 4
this
weeks.
is under embargo. Okay, it's not official. Don't talk
Don't
to
post
anybody.
this. Don't post this.
But this is a system that communicates with customers automatically. It sends the emails, it creates the calls. Again, the same data. Oh, you've not been in touch with this account. This person would agree to reach out, and creates like the communication on its own. This is like the autonomy system that you're talking, and now it's like 3 products. We're adding in context. So there are a lot of other areas. We're adding in analytics. Companies are now that use our system or someone else are seeing on vast amounts of data. How can you turn into strategic insights? Which products are struggling? Which products are successful? Which messaging works? So the idea is to become the center platform for all customer-facing teams and use across the organization. But
one of the fun things I'm doing in my current role is meeting with CMOs and showing them how they can use Gong for some really exciting use cases. Like one of the biggest challenges marketing teams face is they roll out new messaging. They have no idea who on the sales team is using it. They have no idea if it's good or bad or worse than the previous messaging. But with Gong, in almost real time, you can see exactly who's using it, what is the win rate of those using the new messaging versus not using it, and now they start using it for product launches, price list launches, messaging launches, and it's a super exciting use case. So we're expanding into marketing teams, and there are other personas where we have some things in the lab that are not quite ready to go out yet, but you can think of anything from Gong for procurement, Gong for legal, Gong for recruiting. There's so many exciting use cases, and it's just hard to pick which one to come out with next. Thank you.
Hi, Sandish Muley with Zscaler. Fascinating stuff. Totally understand all the incredible use cases that Gong can provide, but how do you think about some of the cyber risks that come about with more AI communication to customers, partners, phishing attacks, whatnot, given now the communications are actually that much more real and human-like? So I'm curious how you think about that in this current environment.
So the question of how are we addressing like security and privacy concerns?
Correct.
Yeah, it's a big issue. So security is huge for Gong. We work some of the world's like largest companies, and touching very sensitive information, like all their customers, conversations, emails, all of that, and without that there is no Gong, right? So we're investing an insane effort. When I see the engineers like in the kitchen, I try to flank them because they tell me, oh, security is killing us. We want to release features. So we spend, we have a large security team with a red team, and people hate selling to us. They complain to me, says Gong is the most difficult company to sell to, not because we don't want to buy, because the security is like, the screening is something that we hate when people are doing it, but we're one of the worst. So it's a big thing for all of our customers, and if we lose their trust, it'll be a very difficult business. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you.
Sagit from Nayax. I'm a CFO. So Gong for finance?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. Listen, our collection team is actually using it at Gong. Our CFO is actually using it. He's always like with customers, very customer-facing CFO, so he always like know what's going on with the account. But for example, if we have like a collection problem, usually either get call or you get a nasty email. So they always know with Gong like what's the status of the account. Maybe there is a real issue, so they could provide like a perfect service. We're starting to use like Gong for our procurement team, believe it or not. I mentioned how hard it is people internally complain how difficult it is to buy stuff, right? So user wants like a project management system. It could be like in 90 days. We're not sure if it's stuck like in security, in IT, or in legal, right, or procurement. So to track that. So like just today I heard like there's Gong for truckers, Gong for surgeons, Gong for healthcare, like people coming with Gong for like everything, which, actually makes me very proud, right? Whether it's us or someone else, right? If we give the ideas, I'm sure they can be Gong for finance.
So have you ever tried selling to a CFO? They're so difficult to sell to. They're trying to lead by example and not spend company resources. So, more questions, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So first of all, as an early stage entrepreneur, I have to say thank you. We're a groupie and we admire Gong in many different disciplines. We're looking at your marketing from early stage and from product and everything. So thank you for that. I'm interested in hearing what are your biggest challenges today? What keeps you up at night in this current economy?
Well, I'm up all night, like every time, so it doesn't, that's like always, but definitely like these are times that you need to like watch, manage, you know, you have like a stormy weather out there. Some of the people, especially like the younger one, right? Technically everybody's like 34 or less that they've never been through like a 2000 or something. They're all only used to seeing like up and to the right. You know, there's like people like a rocket ship or a unicorn, all those things, and I told me it's more like a roller coaster. Like, so you know, I've been through 3 or 4 of these to keep everybody like motivated, engaged, paint the vision. Here's don't worry, we're in control. There are problems. You talk about like very transparently what exactly is going on, so people know that you're aware, but also show the path forward and keeping everybody. I travel a lot. I go to like all the offices. I just went to, you know, New York, Dublin, San Francisco, Tel Aviv, Dublin. So just to be in the trenches with the people, that's what I spend most of the time. And always to maintain kind of like where is the ship going, right? Just you have to look at current problems, but also what's ahead and what's the direction, launch the new products. So there's no shortage of things that will keep you up at night. Like,
Thank you.
Peter.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Wagner, Wing Venture Capital. You know, when you guys started, you had no data, some AI, and a really good understanding of how to apply it to business processes that, you know, business users cared about. Now you still have that last part. You got better AI, and you have a lot of data. Like, so this unbelievable data asset at the foundation of the business. And so I guess question number one is like, did you anticipate that as becoming a real strategic advantage for the company when you founded it? And two, how does that change strategy now that you have this data foundation that you're built on?
Yeah, so first, Peter is being humble, but he was one of the first few that recognized that Gong has potential in the early days, in days where people innately whole thesis how the combination of data and AI could be like transform the business application. So we're grateful. But I did not, you know, I thought we were going to be successful, not that successful. Right, that's the honest answer. So we thought, yeah, we can get like, you know, 100 million sales or whatever. We didn't see like a multi-billion-dollar company potential, which now we definitely see. The opportunity is bigger than we thought. We are sitting on billions of customers' conversation that allows us to train our own models. So we spoke about like accuracy, truthfulness, and precision is key. If you just want to summarize and write, you know, the paper will tolerate anything, right? So that's not a big deal. But if you want to drive autonomous application, so I hope it's not something I said. Think about a self-driving car. The computer vision has to be like top-notch, right? If you don't recognize if it's a motorcycle, truck, or a child crossing the street. So our understanding has to be like precise and reliable, and we have the data, right? Like if you look at like OpenAI's or Bard, all those public knowledge, they're trained on public domain data, which is like the New York Times and Tolstoy, right? We can train better model that are specific for customer interaction and create like much better accuracy and results. So that's the advantages. The other is the ability to benchmark companies. Companies want to know, is my rep attainment better, worse, or the same as my peers, right? So that gives like a lot of potential for companies to benchmark against best practices, other companies in their industries, which you will not have if you're starting on your own.
Moshe.
Hi, Moshe from ApriTools. So now with the downturn in the economy, everyone are focusing on return churn and preventing churn. Can you speak a little bit about what you guys are doing to try to control it and what's working for you, what's not working?
Absolutely. It is, we actually don't separate between like retention and acquisition. We see it all as a customer journey. There is like marketing, pipeline creation, and then like conversion, retention, and expansion, the whole journey. And it is a very similar motion. So at Gong, we track, right? If a customer sends an email, right, that says like, we're not going to renew, we're considering an alternative, or my CFO is putting the pressure on our tech stack, it'll be escalated like in near real time so the team can respond. The managers know, so we have like complete visibility. And the system comes up with a recommendation like, okay, like here's a person that would be good to reach out to. Here's his contact phone number, and he'll create it on his own. So retention is a big focus for many companies right now. And we do it ourselves, and so do our customers.
Beyond the responsive reaction when a customer already decides that they might churn, I think it would be beneficial to share here with folks, what else are we doing at this time around better implementation and deployment and better continuously showing the value. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a question I think is like what companies can do and versus self. But definitely I said like, this is a time that forces you to be better, right? So it's very easy to see what customers don't understand. For example, we saw that sometimes some of our customers like, I want to know like, what are the other things that I could be doing with Gong? So I think we're using just part, right? Which is a big concern. If they're using just a small sliver of the product, then they might have like other options. Our interest to make sure that their interest to make sure that they make the most out of it. So recognize that we need like a recipe book that we understood that customers don't know all the things that they can do with the product, right? I just saw like the, if you buy a Vitamix, right, it says not just for smoothies, right? You could do like peanut butter, you could do a soup, you could do like a sorbet, right? And people think about just for smoothies, but so we took our education team and they created a recipe book that is, we're probably gonna call it not just for smoothies, right? So that's a great opportunity to improve.
Maybe one final question. There we go.
I'm the final one. So Daniel Karp from Servan. So Amit, one of the things that is interesting about Gong is that you are an Israeli, and about you're an Israeli entrepreneur, but you think a little bit different than most entrepreneurs that I've seen. So this is a two-parter. First one, can you talk a little bit how you approach talent enablement, meaning adding to the beehive of talent and like the brain trust of the company, and how you enable that talent to flourish? And the second one is, how do you think about execution focus and about weeding out the noise?
What was the second part? Sorry, I didn't hear.
How do you think about execution centricity and weeding out the noise, focusing on what matters?
So those are related, right? So I think there are two things that matter for a company's success. First is like what market you're in, and second is the team, right? I think that the market is more important. I think like a reasonable team in a good market will succeed. Like if you're not in a good market, even a very good team will struggle, and there are quite a few examples. But the team is key, and we focused early. I think the core team, the first hires are critical, and I could still like. I think all of the, not obviously the founders, but the founding team, the first like 20, 30 people, most of them are still with the company. I can track like almost every employee in the company, kind of the lineage, like who brought whom, the network, and how they built. And to this day, many of them are like, some people don't make it. Like, I mean, they're good when you're like 50 people, and they're not good when you're 500 or 5,000. But many of the people, like in leadership, like are early on, and they bring. I interviewed like every person. Like I think I did like 200 people. like every person, doesn't matter if they're like a janitor or office manager or all of that, to make sure that first, the fact that people know that I'm interviewing, that they're more, they put more focus on who they're bringing. And even when I'm not, it kind of sends a message how important like every hire. It's one of the most best use of best ROI in 30 minutes, right? Because a person is costing at least like $100,000, and if they're a sales, they can generate $1 million. You know, it's hard to find like a better use of 30 minutes of a CEO's time. Like it's a pretty good ROI, right? Between 100,000 to $1 million an hour, pretty good rate. So at 200, I would still hire even like to interview 2,000, but the pace became so large that I just couldn't do it. But then I had like 2 C-levels needs to sign off on every candidate. So that's like super important. The execution is always like a find. I wouldn't say we're like the most tight company out there. We try to focus on people and energy and positive reinforcement. So celebrating the success, the one way of steering the ship is what you celebrate. I spend a lot of time with people, and there's like a whole like programs. There's like, I have my Slack channels called like Captain's Log. There's like Captain's Table. I take people to dinner. I do walk and talks with people all the time. And there's only so much that you can do, but you celebrate the things that matter. So right now, we said we're launching a new product. So every success, when a customer says something, I post about it. I make a big deal out of it. Someone did a nice thing, I post about it. So you celebrate all the things that matter, and that's how you rise above the noise level. We also have, we have like a data team, and we're metrics. We're not just, kumbaya, right? It's a company is like very driven, and we monitor our numbers, and we're very responsible. But you just kind of show the direction and show what matters, and almost ignore everything else.
Well, folks, while you
Hope
were
that
enjoying
works, yeah.
Amit, I've been looking at all the amazing desserts that are being put out behind you.
Oh, there's dessert.
They're desserts.
Oh.
So I want to thank Amit Bendov, CEO
Thank
and
you,
co-founder
Udi.
of
Thank
Gong.
everybody.
And Udi and Amit, on behalf of Icon, the entire community, I want to thank you for coming here and joining us tonight. And everybody enjoy desserts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.